Notebook number 2. Number 1. Imagine an overstuffed bag of tricks. Those who belong to the class known as college students are given a free pass. You're handed an empty bag at the start of your education, and you're allowed to put anything you want inside of it. Then adults give you a break for the next 4 years. There are unfortunate exceptions to this rule in certain departments. Adults have been chosen to uphold societal values after all. They'll turn a blind eye for the most part and let you put anything you want into that bag, as long as you hang on tight to that student ID of yours. College. Now there's a system. Though it's not quite death, it's a pretty close second. It's the nexus of 3 major institutions: compulsory education, compulsory labor, and compulsory marriage. And these 3 institutions happen to be the greatest achievements of human civilization. Contrary to expectation, when experienced in combination, they allow for an escape into a transient, self-absorbed greatness. Like death, college serves as a kind of escape hatch. But while death takes you straight to the morgue, college is a single rope dangling loose from the inescapable net of society. While in death everyone receives equal treatment, college is a place where certain people arrive covered in a layer of muck, a nastiness that they, in turn, smear onto others. To sum it up, the usual bag of tricks consists of going to class, taking tests, chasing the opposite sex, recreation, earning spending money, pretending to be interested in joining clubs, observing society, and hanging out. The first 7 constitute 80% of your waking hours. I don't even know how to explain what goes on that 80% of the time. I would go on and still never get to the last one, hanging out. You just have to gather all the tools you can, as if in preparation to outsmart life itself, and keep them in that overstuffed bag of tricks. 2. February 1988. I spent my first winter vacation alone at the place on Wenzhou Street. All week I holed up in my room, ate instant noodles, went for walks, went to the bathroom. In between those 3 activities, I worked on a story a lot more disturbing than this one. Got a letter in the mail. On the white envelope was a hand-drawn sketch in red marker. It was of a naked woman with her legs spread eagle. I want to see you. Reply, or else I'll chop off a fingertip and send it to you. Meng Sheng, the bridge room from hell. Meng Sheng, that annoying dude I met at arts camp. He was like a sinister shadow that made me want to run away. The next day, I'd say I was sick and left Danshui. As I was leaving, I could see him standing off in the distance with a strange, innocent smile on his face. It was as if that smile could encroach upon my mind, even if I was rid of him for the next few months and tried to console myself with the thought that we had no contact. That smile suggested the powers that he'd flaunted around me, to show that he was capable of dominating me. So when I got the letter, I was terrified. I never before feared being dominated in a relationship. I could practically feel his eyes probing me, using me as he pleased. I decided not to reply. I refused to enter the dynamic in that premonition, and I also wanted to test his strength. 3 days after his first letter, a second letter arrived. On the envelope was a drawing of a knife, and in red ink like the first, but this time there was no mailing address. Evidently, it had been placed directly in the mailbox. I opened it. Inside was a letter, along with a plastic bag riddled with staples that, sure enough, contained a crimson, blood-soaked, withered fingertip. My entire body started to tremble. I got on my bike and pedaled as fast as I could to a distant canal. When the coast was clear, I tossed the plastic bag in the water and told myself I'd lost. The letter said, "I'm not in love with you, I just want to see you. If you don't reply, I'll come over in the middle of the night on Sunday and beat the crap out of you. Meng Sheng, bridge room among bridge rooms." 10 p.m. on Sunday, I'd been scrambling to finish the story. I was completely exhausted, but I had to wait for Meng Sheng. It was strange, to say the least, to be waiting around for some guy I'd met only once to come over and beat me up. But in fact, I felt like we were old friends, and so I started to look forward to it. I didn't want him in my room though. Shui Ling was the only one I'd let in. I dragged me and my throbbing, overactive mind down to the front steps of the building. The sound of passing scooters, big and small, grazed my ears. Seemingly able to distinguish their individual sounds, I felt extraordinarily sensitive. Focusing on my senses had forced my mind to stop thinking. Suddenly, out of this tranquil state came an internal directive. I was free to look him right in the eye and say whatever I wanted. "So you've surrendered, eh? How long have you been sitting here waiting?" At exactly midnight, this dude Meng Sheng pulled up on a heavyweight motorcycle with no muffler. The rumbling noise it made was downright maddening. His bike had a white fairing and was fitted with a rear seat cowl that, like the glint of a razor's edge, signaled danger. Coupled with sensitivity, that ferociousness was echoed in his tone, which exhibited a manner that seemed all his own. "What do you really want?" I shot back at him, but it was obvious that I was no match for him. In spite of the tenderness flowing between us, I had to toughen up and push back. "What do I want?" he asked himself, as if my question were so good he had to mull it over. He took off his wraparound sunglasses, and a genuine smile flashed across his face. "I want to die." I hung out with him for a while. When we were together, my masculine and feminine sides reached their highest state of dialectical tension. It was the same for him, and he knew that it was his optimal state. His words had sparked something in both of us. "Take me somewhere," I said. Though his words were hard, I softened. His expression instantly changed, and he didn't say another word. Once he ditched that tough exterior, his face was like a blank sheet of paper. For the first time since we'd met, I felt as if I could let my guard down. His motorcycle shot down the overpass of Keelum Road. The street lamps along the highway formed arcs of yellow light. I was singing, but the sound was broken up by the wind. "Do you know why I decided to talk to you out of everyone?" He parked the bike underneath Fuhei Bridge and led me up to a weed-covered path to an open area on a hill. There were no houses nearby. I looked up at the wild grass, which grew so tall that it towered over our heads. "I read the story that you submitted to the writing workshop. You're the kind of person who'd die with me. You practically have horns growing out of your head. I recognized it in an instant." A sly grin escaped from the corners of his mouth. "You're wrong. I don't want to die, or anything like that. My high hopes were crushed. Why would you need another person to die with you? That's horrible." I started to feel I'd overestimated him. "It's not my choice. I've never gotten an ounce of sympathy from anyone. I've always hated being alone, and I refuse to die alone. I don't want my life to end this way." Sounds juvenile to me. You still have to die alone, and it's the most alone you'll ever be. I never think about these things, but even I know that much. Where do you get these ideas from? I talk about my fantasies too openly. His face betrayed his arrogance. It's like being in the clutches of death and refusing the last breath of air, with my eyes wide open and a sneer on my face. To have paid such a high price to live, only to die. Don't tell me I don't have the right to say no thanks. "I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't agree with you. It doesn't matter what you say." I had all kinds of deep reservations that inhibited me from continuing this conversation. "You and I are birds of a feather." He shot me the same strange smile as he did when we first met at Tamkang University. "The thing is, you're more strongly inclined towards realism than I am, so it's easier for you to escape yourself. I completely envy you. That's a commendable strength." He seemed on the verge of kissing my feet, which struck me as funny. "Thanks a lot," I said, unable to restrain the loud guffaw that slipped out. My laugh set him off, and his laugh was even more outrageous. We were both cracking up so hard our stomachs hurt. I began slapping him on the cheek, harder and harder, and he started stroking my hair faster and faster. In a burst of silliness, we released the tension that had built up from all the heaviness and arrived at an understanding. "Tell me about yourself." I was curious about him. "Perfect, flawless human being. My family had loads of money. I'm also so smart that it's easy for me to do the best at everything I do. I'm so bored that I wish I were dead. Whatever I want to do, I can do, and no one's going to stop me. When I was 12 and still in grade school, I pulled the pants off the girl next door and practiced putting my pee-pee inside of her body. Later on, I started feeling like there was a special kind of boredom awaiting me. When I was 14, I joined a gang. I left home for 2 whole years. I hunted to kill and was hunted myself. Those were exciting times. But I realized I'd meet a gruesome, senseless death before I'd even figured out what the hell was going on. I went home because I experienced a huge shock. One day I was in a hotel room getting liquored up with this underage prostitute, and I spotted a big black birthmark on the inside of her thigh. It was the same girl from when I was 12. I cried out her name just as I was about to enter her, and suddenly I broke down sobbing. Pain was shooting through my heart and lungs. She started to cry too and ran out of the room naked. I'd done a bad thing and I was being punished. I felt like I had it coming, and that's when I went home. I forced myself to live a normal life. I lost whatever right I had to object, so the best punishment for me was to have my hands bound and tied, to let myself be arrested by boredom. Later on, my story became one of a man in search of his destiny with a certain goddess. By the time I was a junior, I'd already skipped 2 grades to make up for the 2 years I spent on the streets. My life story is way too long. I'm tired. We'll talk more next time, okay? His final words sounded weak, though I sensed an inkling of goodwill within that weakness. I gave him my most gracious and sincere nod, and thanked him for everything he'd shared with me. It was a moving experience, one that I certainly wanted to repay in kind. The stream of headlights on Fuhei Bridge illuminated its arches to form what from a distance looked like a gold pavilion. "Where did the fingertip come from?" I asked, my eyes widening. "I told one of my gang brothers to get it for me." He seemed slightly remorseful. 3. The moment I said to Shui Ling, "Can we start over?" the floodgates of desire were thrown open. We didn't see each other the entire winter break. It was a buffer between us, and the suspense built up, as if for an even bigger clash. "If I come out of hiding and treat you however I want, you'll wish you could hide from me, but you won't be able to. I'll be cast deep down into the inferno," I wrote to her. "Even if you were in the inferno, I'd follow you down just to see you. I'm capable of things you can't imagine." That was her response. Nice. She wasn't one to downplay her abilities. The other day, Saturday I think, I was in Hsinchu visiting Ziming. I took the Zhongxing line there by myself. The way she spoke, it was as if she was teasing out a delicate thread. I didn't dare interrupt her. It was the first time we'd run into each other that semester. The 2 of us stood under the portico of the literature department building. It felt like our past had been a lifetime ago. Ziming was her best friend from high school. I went to watch her basketball game. Yeah, it was fun. I hadn't had that much fun in ages. She turned and looked at me. I was listening, mesmerized. She took me out for some good food. That night, when we went to bed, we stayed up talking with the lights out. She leaned back against a pillar, staring excitedly off into the distance. The next day, she even helped me wash my hair and dry it. As she recounted the details, the enraptured look on her face revealed how much she cherished each second. Yeah, part of me really didn't want to come back. I asked her why, and she sighed. I told myself to have as much fun as I could, because as soon as I came back and school started, things would stop being so laid back. With a change of topic, a dimpled smile spread across her face. We wheeled our bikes to Drunken Moon Lake. I said, "I used to imagine what you look like when you get older." She asked what I had imagined. I said, "More melancholy. And later on, tall and slender. Someday you'll grow into a tall and slender woman, sitting there on that bench by the lake." She started to ramble, telling me her entire life story. All of a sudden, everyone's gone. I go to school alone, walk alone, ride the bus alone, eat alone, go home alone. It's not like before, when there was always someone who'd let me copy their homework, or in home ec, when someone would help me knit a sweater, and I just stand to the side during cooking lessons, or in gym class, when someone would walk with me after doing sprints. Not to mention Ziming taking me to the bus stop every day and covering for me in everything, even helping me tie my shoes, things like that. During freshman year, sometimes I'd feel this tightness in my chest, and I'd go to the payphone by the literature department and call Ziming in Hsinchu, but I could never get through on the dorm phone because no one would answer. Then I felt even worse, and I'd start crying. Her eyes, now red, began to well over. She lay her head down on her purple backpack. Afternoon. The sun came out, but then rain began to pitter-patter. Little by little, it started raining with ever greater intensity, and soon the sky was covered by dark clouds. I tried to shield her with my umbrella, but she pushed it away, saying she wanted to get drenched. I closed it, and the 2 of us sat on the white animal bench, getting drenched. The droplets were like a flurry of arrows, foiled by the lake's surface. The cold wind hit us, wave upon wave. I looked at her long hair, flattened by the rain. Beads of water were trickling down her neck and off the tips of the locks that were so perfectly framing her exquisite face. We wandered through the pouring rain, our vision blurred and our eyes aching. The two of us walked down the center of a deserted road. With all human commotion at a standstill, we heard the scattered sounds of nature, the passing cry of a bird overhead. Soaked from head to toe, we found our way to the lush greenery of Wenzhou Street. The trees that lined the street appeared to have been reborn in shades of emerald. No need to be silent. Are you sinking into some corner of your melancholy? In my heart, I called out to you. Didn't eat dinner, either. Said it was a waste of time. It was her idea to hang out at my place. When I got a towel and tried to help her dry her hair, she said she wanted to do it herself. She curled up in a corner of the bed, her legs tucked against her chest. She wanted to talk. Said she didn't want to depend on other people anymore. She didn't think she needed to. She was already independent. She was taking care of things on her own. The corners of her mouth tightened defiantly. I could see that this was the crux of the phase she was going through. After all, in the past she had never gone to the movies by herself, never had a chance to go for a walk by herself. This rare rose of a girl. She said I didn't have to help her with anything and to let her do it herself unless I was always going to be there. She was slower than other people in finding her own way, but I had to respect her willingness to face adversity. It was almost 10. What should I do? It's almost 10, she asked, flustered. Don't worry about it. Just go home, I said soothingly. What should I do? I have to go home, she repeated, as if she hadn't heard me. It was like watching a drowning man gasping for air. Her sudden panic startled me. What should I do? What should I do? She sat down at my desk and looked at me with helpless eyes. If you don't want to go, don't go. I wanted to make her calm down. I can't. I have to go home, she said, crumpling onto the desk. I was at a loss. So don't go. I can't. I can't. She started crying softly. Impulsively, I walked over and wrapped my arms tightly around her head. She grew quiet, letting in the warmth. The panic in her heart was no match for it.